Hi and welcome to the latest in the 15-minute AI series. Today we're looking at a product called Ollama. So Ollama is an open source tool that is designed to simplify the process of running large language models locally, and it's entirely free. And because we're running locally, we have full control, and that's particularly important in areas of privacy. Seeing as we're running locally, none of our data is sent outside of our machine to any third parties such as Google, OpenAI, etc. And as we'll see in this video, it's extremely easy to set up and use. And we'll go through the whole process of installing, using specific models, how to find additional models, and how we can use those models. So first thing you'll see here, we can go to the Ollama.com website. And in fact, I'm going to go back to the main page. It's not that different from the one that is currently being shown. Very simple front page. We're just going to click on the download button here. We have three different options there. Covers, I suspect, 99% of most machines out there. So we have Mac OS, Linux or Windows. We can click on the Linux one here. So I'm currently running this on Ubuntu. We can copy that across. Go over to my terminal session. I can then paste that and that starts to download and install. That's going to take a few minutes to actually download, and we'll come back to that when that's near completion. Great, so that's finished downloading and installing. Let's just do a quick test here. So let's type in Ollama, and here we go. So Ollama is installed. It gives us a list of available commands. And the first command we're actually going to use is run here to run a particular model. So back over to here, Ollama run. Now let's see what model we actually want to run. So if we go back up to Ollama.com, you look at the top here, we have three menu options. We're going to click on models, and this takes us to a library, a rather large library nowadays, of a huge lot of models here. So I'm going to pick a fairly small one actually. So let's have a look. In fact, if you look at this, it tells you what those are actually used for and also the different sizes of model available. So Llama 3.2 is available in 1B or 3B. So let's click on this. In fact, I'm going to stick with the 3B model. So let's just copy that. I'm just going to copy that. We're going to go back to our terminal window here. I'm going to paste that, hit enter, and it's pull that down. So this was actually very fast because I've actually got that model installed. And in a short while I'll show you how to actually list all the models you have installed locally, and you can use new ones. But what it has done is actually loaded the full model up into Ollama, and now we actually have a command line interface to actually chat with it. So let's try. So right, me a poem about spring. There we go, and it's running very fast as well. So straight away we've got how much output there? It's around 20 lines of output there in several seconds. So if we switch back up to the Ollama website again, as you can see, when I clicked on that model, we're actually given a model card here. So this gives us additional information about the card, templates, what it can be used for, and down below we actually have a lot more information specifically about what Meta has actually published from a marketing point of view and a technical point of view about the model. It's interesting, it's supported languages, Thai as well in fact. So let's just try something else. Let's just go back to our session here. Can you translate that into German? I can't read German, but I'm going to believe it. I'm going to understand that as a German poem translation of the original. So there again, straight away, we've got a command line interface into a large language model running locally on your machine. Now, one of the things to bear in mind is the speed at which inference, so inference is how a large language model, or the process large language model, actually returning a response to your request. Now, the speed at which that happens will actually be determined by the speed and how modern your CPU is. And more specifically, if you have a GPU that can run these models, it will run much faster. Now, I'm not going to go into much detail in this video regarding GPUs and the use of those for Ollama, or in fact for any large language model inference engine. We're just going to cover on here. One of the things, if you're used to using OpenAI or ChatGPT or AI Studio, you'll notice it's a fairly simple bog standard interface. It's not even a GUI, it's just a command line interface. Now, some people may like this, it's fantastic, just want some quick output. What I will be covering in future videos is, well, in fact, are graphical front ends, which you can then connect to remote large language models, or in fact you can connect to Ollama. So we can give you a great looking front end to Ollama with everything running locally, and there are quite a few of those, but we're not going to cover those in this video. What I do want to cover is some of the other options that you have available as far as Ollama is concerned. So from here, I'm just going to get out of this command line interface, so type in by there. Once more, just type in Ollama. We have our list of commands there. The first thing I want to do is Ollama list, and that will show us all the models we actually have downloaded. And in fact, as you can see there, I've actually have two different models downloaded. So one's the freebie and one's the latest. They actually happen to be the same model, but because they have a different label, it's actually downloaded it. Again, if we look, let's have a look. If you want to look at specifics of that model, we can actually use the show command. Show Ollama show, and here I'll use Llama 3.2 freebie, and this gives us detailed information about the architecture, the Llama architecture, the parameters. So it said freebie, it's actually 3.2 billion parameters. The context length, which is very important if you're working with these things, actually has quite a large context window, around, in fact, over 131,000 token window, which is really good. Embedding length, so when your dot information gets vectorized or created, vector size determines the amount of dimensions stored. And quantization, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, other than to say it's quantization is a way of actually shrinking models down by removing some of the precision. So we still get good results, but maybe not as precise as some of the larger models that haven't been quantized. You've got a smaller bit about the license there, and that's fantastic. Now, I'm just going to go back up here, back up to the models library, and we're just going to have a look for here some of the other models that are available. So Llama, some of the latest ones. We've got some Chinese models here. We have Pi 4, which is fairly new, and again that's from Microsoft, open source. We have Mistral, again another fantastic model. Gemma, which is actually being built by Google, it's their open source version of their models. Gwen is actually again another Chinese model. It actually performs particularly well. There is a specific Gwen 2.5 coder model which does particularly well on coding examples. Lava is actually a multimodal model, and there are ways of actually uploading images even from the command line, and we can ask questions about images. Gemma 2 code Llama, so Gwen 2.5 coder I mentioned earlier on. And again, there's a huge number here. I'm not going to count those, but this is certainly a large number. One of the ones I'm looking for here is a fairly new one called DeepSeek. Let's have a quick see if that's on there. So DeepSeek Coder. So this is a new model, again a Chinese model, which performs particularly well with coding examples. So in fact what you could do, you could actually hook this up with your locally deployed IDE, and you could use one of the plugins such as Ada or Klein, and actually have this working against your local model. So once again, you can be coding completely locally with none of your code actually being transferred over to third parties. Now, just a couple of other things I want to touch on here. So when we're talking about having models deployed locally, we sometimes hear the term edge devices. So edge devices are devices that sit at the edge of the network or very close to you. A recent announcement, in fact last week, so this is being filmed on the 14th of January 2025. Last week Nvidia had an announcement about a new desktop machine they're releasing, which will allow you to run very large models locally. So this is in a form factor similar to an Apple Mac Mini, but it comes with GPU with 128 gig of VRAM, which means you can run very large models. It's being released in March for around about the $3,000 mark, which is amazing. One of the other things, you can actually connect two of these together and run even larger models. So this will open up the possibility of development teams or companies having this deployed in their network locally, running large models and having all that information retained and having no issues around security. Now, one of the things I do see is actually going forward is the use of more local models, and I suspect that's the reason for Nvidia releasing their Digits desktop, they've called it. The other thing they're releasing is actually a desktop, a laptop, again with large amount of GPU memory for running large language models again. So from an Ollama point of view of running models locally, that's as far as we're going to cover today. Hopefully it's shown you how easy it is to actually start running and deploying these models. So nothing's stopping you now, so go ahead.